Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Mapping Hour. This is episode 11. We're still at the same place online, esriurl.com/mapping hour. And also, if you're interested in chatting with each other or posting a question, go to esriurl.com/mapping hour chat room. Reminder that you can participate in all of these activities that we're showing using a login with publishing capacity. And if you don't have one, go to the Mapping Hour website and complete the survey and request your login. We've been through 2 sets of 5 episodes. That first set of 5 was looking at the fundamentals of ArcGIS Online and especially using the GeoInquiries pre-built content to do academic content with ArcGIS Online. Jump right in and be teaching with those. So if you are jumping in right now with episode 11 and thinking, okay, I could skip all of those first episodes, you may want to go back and review and get to see that. Episodes 6 through 10, we're really extending the ArcGIS Online framework in there and going into data and publishing, the Living Atlas, that great content that's there, doing the analysis, getting into some of the fun things that you can do with that, and working in with web apps and sharing out to be interacting with the outside world, especially in hour number 10, that whole Appsapalooza that we had with the web app templates and the web app builder, and thinking about that you're configuring, not programming, but configuring, and that this is all really doable for everybody. And students especially find this stuff a breeze, but teachers can engage this, and parents who are saying, gee, this would be a really fun thing to be able to see my students at home, my kids as students at home being able to build something. That's what we want to encourage. So where are we going today? Episode 11 through 15, we're extending this whole vision of apps, the broader framework of ArcGIS Online, engaging a series of apps. And today and tomorrow are really looking with a deep dive into Survey 123 and its ability to generate data using this whole survey mechanism, which is a really powerful way to build data if you are able to design well. And so we're going to be looking at question types and the relationship between good questions and good data and geopoints. And then we'll finish up today looking at some Geo Projects. But I'm going to turn it over at this point to Kylie and Tom and stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Charlie. So as Charlie was saying, today we're going to look at this app called Survey 123. And the reason you care is that what we've seen so far is bringing data into a map, right? Whether it's from Living Atlas, from a CSV, from drag and drop, all these ways to get data that you have into a map. What if you don't have the data yet, right? There's a problem you want to solve. There's information you need to solve that problem or answer that question. And what are some ways to get that data in the first place? And that's where Survey 123 comes in. So in Survey 123, the 123 part actually stands for the 3 steps it takes. One is creating a survey. Your second thing is getting answers or having people fill out that survey. And then the third part is analyzing the results or using the results or actually answering that question, right? So what Survey 123 is it's an app that it's going to remind you of like a Google form, for example, but the key thing here is that it also has a map involved. So all of that information that you're getting, those questions that you can author, will have a location tied to the answers. So I'm going to go ahead now and turn it over to Tom to show us an example. And if you've been following Mapping Hour, you might be a little bit familiar with this one.
Thanks, Kylie. So sticking with the 123 model for Survey 123, We'll first take a look at the design view of a form that you probably recently filled out, and that was the registration form for the mapping hour. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because my colleagues will do that momentarily, but we want to give you a behind-the-scenes look at what this form looks like as we were building it. These are some of the tools, and of course, this is a final form that you, the user, saw. So when we posted it on the web, on the Mapping Hour website, it turned into a survey that you could click on and then fill out various components. So in this case, first name was a text string, last initial was a single letter, and then we have pull downs. And this particular pull down is special because we also included some logic behind it that actually exposes some additional questions if, in this case, you selected yes. So you'll notice this question has now appeared, are you over 18? Which then makes yet one more question appear. So this type of logic, Kylie will talk you through a bit more. Now, the cool thing about GeoForms is that they are, or can be, geo-enabled. So we've got a map control widget here. If you let it target in on your location, it'll automatically bring you down to where you're situated with your computer. And then, of course, in this form, we've got a couple fun little questions that we'll use later on as a part of our data analysis processes. So we've designed the form, we've collected data, and what we want to do now is take a brief look at the data that's come in through that form. Now, again, I'm on the back side of the form. We're looking at the stuff behind the scenes, and we can see the data that has been collected in that form so far. Now, the form's not been up and running for very long, but you can see that we've collected some data. It exposes both on the map and in a table, and then we can see details. And then lastly, at least as for what I'm showing you at the moment, there's an analysis button. So depending on the type of data that's collected in each question, certain types of analyses or displays can be shown for that response. So in this case, it was a first name. You saw a word cloud for it. The last initial is not enough data to do much with, so we don't get a lot of visualizations. But then, of course, we get, do you need temporary password? And we can select different types of visualizations for that question, and so on and so forth. So it's a very nice tool, Survey123, for rapidly looking at and making judgments about the data that you've just collected through your form. Kylie?
Thanks, Tom. That was great. So one of the things to pay attention to that Tom was showing there was just that you can use this data and you get that table like we were looking at before, and you can use it right there in the Survey123 website and see that information. And you saw those great visualizations, right? Some charts, some graphs, and of course the table view. Now, the cool thing is, since it's part of ArcGIS, that's also in your organization, and you'll be able to use it in any of those apps we were showing the other day or any of the apps we're going to show in episodes to come. So let's jump in and we can build a survey. All right, so when you log into Survey123, this is roughly the view you'll have. You can see the surveys that I have available. You can tell I've tried this before, right? This will be familiar in a moment. You can see the survey that Tom was just showing. He shared with me in case I wanted to see it. So that's part of, again, the ArcGIS system and that sharing model that we've talked about. You can even do that with your survey. So let's just go ahead and get started now, and we're going to create a new survey. And as I hinted a minute ago, we're going to look at dream vacations. And you can add a thumbnail to represent your survey. For example, I like this picture when I'm thinking of vacation. And you can give it some tags like demo and survey. And you can give it a summary. Where do you want to go? All right, so we'll go ahead and create that. And it's going to spin up the pieces that we need in order to have our survey here. Now, while it's doing that, one thing to mention, you've heard us talk about feature services before. It does actually create that feature service for you. And what you're going to do now, if you want kind of the techie idea, is you're adding the fields to that feature service. So now I come in and I can see the choices I have for my survey. And I'm going to go ahead and start adding things. Well, often with a survey, one of the first things we want to know is who's filling it out. Let's go ahead and give it a title here. And a string makes sense for that. So you may have noticed that when I was on this ad, I picked this single line text because that's a string. A name is just a simple string that I want them to add. And I can say if it's required, how many characters are required. I'm not going to worry too much else on this one. I'm going to go back to add because there are other things I'd like to include. Now, being that we keep talking about how the map is important, let's go ahead and make sure we get a map in here. And I'm going to add a map question. So you can see what I'm doing is over here with all these choices, I pick the one I want and I click on it with my mouse and I kind of drag it. Similar to that drag and drop that you were seeing the other day. And I'm going to bring it over here onto the form. And as I hold it, you'll see it kind of appear there. Right here, it's not going to work. I can't put it by the submit button. I need it up here in the actual form area. There we go. You can see the little preview of map up here. And let go with your mouse. And here it comes. I'm going to give it a title. And I picked vacations today because it's kind of fun when we're at home. It'd be nice to go somewhere, right? So let's think about somewhere we want to go. And here, I'm going to show you another part, which is this hint. So right now, I've put a map on here, but some people might not know how to use the map. And so they might want some information about what exactly they should be filling out or putting there. And so you can use that hint field. I'm going to go ahead and paste some text that I have saved about what you do. You need to place the pin at the location you want to vacation. And I want people to understand they can pan, zoom in and out, and then they need to click and make sure that pin gets placed. Some other things I may want to know is how long they want to go. Well, okay, I could use a string, right? I can add a string on here and I can say, how long will you go for? What could people put in here? Pretty much anything they want. Someone could write in 7 days. Someone could write 1 week. Someone could write half a month. Someone could write, they could put pretty much anything. And if you remember, when Tom was showing that Analyze tab, and he was looking at the names, right? What kind of information did he get there? Did he get a nice chart of the different options people were picking? Well, no, it was a string. It's not well formatted data. You don't know what someone is going to enter. And so you can't assume that it is a number or even contains a number. I could say about a week until I decide to come home. So I don't want to use a string for that because maybe I want to chart some of that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that question right here. Now, since I've thought about it more and I know I want a length of time and a number, I'm going to go ahead and drag that number on here. And I'm going to say, how many days will you stay? So one key here is that I've restricted them to be a number. And in fact, if you look down here in some of these choices I have, I can restrict it farther and say, it must be an integer or a whole number. I want to do that because I don't really want people to tell me if they want a half day, a third of a day. That's not too important. I just want a rough number of days. And the details of, maybe it's 4.5 and maybe it's 4 aren't important to this question I'm asking. So I'm going to restrict them to putting an integer, and I'm going to require it to be a number. Okay, great. Now I'm getting some data that I can actually use. You'll also notice I provided in my question the units that I want people to think about, right? Because some people might end up putting a 4 and mean 4 days, and other people could put a 4 and mean 4 weeks, and someone else maybe even 4 months. And then another idea here is to actually give a hint reminding them, enter the number of days. The units are kind of important to reinforce because that comes to that quality of your data. Now, some people may fill out your survey wrong. That's going to be in your data. That's one of the risks of allowing people to enter information, right? And you may have to look at it and analyze it and decide which questions were invalid answers and get rid of some at the end. But what I'm doing when I make my survey is setting myself up to gather my best possible data. And so clues like this and reminders are how I help people get that best possible data. What about why they want to go? So I have a couple choices here, and we'll talk about a couple with Joseph in a little bit. But for this, I'm going to do a single choice because I want to know the main reason that they want to go. What is your main reason for going? Now, I can enter some choices here. For example, the food. That would be my daughter's answer. Maybe the music. Maybe there's a special event I'm going to. Oh, I want more choices. I'm not restricted to 3. I can add more. I can add another one. For example, Maybe I'm interested in a natural site in the area. And I can keep going. I could add a historic site or perhaps a cultural one. So you can see I can add as many things as I want here. I can even allow other. Now what that's going to do is give that other button and then prompt someone for what that other reason is. Now, be aware when you're prompting someone for their reason, that becomes a string. So if I really want people to pick one of the choices I've given, I'm not going to give an other option. I'd rather they have to think a little bit more and pick one of these buckets to put their answer into than giving them the freedom to answer other. Now, that might not be the case of every survey, right? There may be ones where you really want a more precise or accurate answer, and then that other field can become very important to let people answer exactly their reason. All right, let's go back, and I'm just going to add one more thing to our survey here, and that is an image. So one of the really cool things is you could have even imagery attached as part of your data. So let's go ahead and we'll add that field in here. Whoops, you saw I missed that magical spot where I can actually place it. So let's do that again. And let's say, show a picture that speaks to why you want to go. That's pretty open-ended, right? In this case, I just want a picture that inspires them or makes them excited to go, because having a great picture with your data can help you make some more visually interesting pop-ups or information displays for sharing later. So, okay, I've got that in there. Now, if I was to stick with this survey and hand it over, nothing here has to be filled out. Someone could just look at it and go, yeah, I'm good with that, and click submit. Well, for my question, I need to think about, what do I have to know? What is the point of my study? And in this case, I don't really care what their name is. It's interesting, but I am really curious about where people want to go. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to scroll down and seeing all these options, and we'll explore them in a little bit with Joseph. The main thing I want to do right now is this is a required question. Okay, when I click this box, you'll see a red star appear. And you may be familiar with that from filling out surveys, right? Often a little star next to it means, no, I have to fill this out. And that's the case here. So now, if they haven't provided a location, they can't share their answer. And the other thing in this survey I'm really curious about is, what's the main reason they want to go? So again here, I can mark that as a required question. Great, and we see our red star appear. Okay, my survey is pretty much ready here, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. Once I've done that, the survey exists. I could close this and come back to it at a later time, but nobody else has access, and nobody can fill it out yet. To make it something that other people can fill out, what I need to do is click this Publish button. So when I do that, it becomes an actual item that is ready to be filled out. That's my way of saying, yeah, I'm ready. Now, before I do that, I may want to preview my survey. What this is going to do is let me see what it looks like so that I can make sure, does it seem right? Did I miss anything? Was there a setting I want to tweak? And you'll see this new tab opens, and it's getting ready my survey. Well, I don't have those editing things over here anymore. And now I can actually interact with my map. Okay, there's the panning, there's that zooming in and out with the buttons that they mentioned I'd be able to do, right? I can place that pin where I want to go. And now, let's see. Okay, I've got the stars I want. All right, this is looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. Just go ahead and we close this preview, and we're back in our survey, ready to keep going. Let's go ahead and publish, right? Let's make this available. It's going to be saved, and that's great. I'm ready to publish it. And this is turning it into that official thing so that it's getting closer and closer to ready for other people. But if you remember from our other episodes, in ArcGIS Online, just because something is saved, that doesn't mean it's shared. Okay, and it's the same with your survey. So right now, it's creating this survey and getting it all ready to be filled out. And I am going to be the only person who could actually fill it out. That could be what I want. It could be something where I want to walk around and go collect data from people. And I'm not going to have anyone else typing in. I want my phone to be the one that has this survey, because yes, you can use it even on your mobile phone. I want to have that control. I don't want to open it up to the universe. But what if I just want to send a link out, maybe post it on Twitter and have people fill out this information to get a bit more data into my survey? Well, in that case, it needs to be shared in a way they can access it. So what I need to do that is go into the Collaborate tab, right? And you can see I'm choosing who can submit it and also who can view. And that means like my data, the stuff that Tom was showing, that Analyze, that Data tab. Well, for submitting, I probably, in this case, want anyone to fill it out. I'd love to hear where anyone wants to go on vacation. I haven't set the parameters of this. Where do college students in my class want to go? Right now, I just said, where do you want to go? It's kind of an open-ended question, an exploratory survey, if you will, right? So I can do that. And when I do, everyone is going to be able to access, and I can send out this nice short URL. You remember we've talked about these before, right? It's a common structure you'll see is this nice arcg.is for sharing content. I can even go ahead and open it in a new tab right now if I'm ready to start filling it out, or I can get a QR code. So I could take that, post an image of that on Twitter, and people would be able to just scan it and fill out my survey. Maybe I'm doing a presentation similar to what we're doing now, and I'd like the people watching the presentation to take a minute and fill out the survey. Well, this is a great thing to just stick on a slide, and everyone with a smartphone can just hold their phone up, take it, and it'll open my survey to fill out. They don't even have to type that URL. So as you can see, there's a number of ways to share it once I have shared it and made it accessible. So I need to make it accessible, and then people can fill it out for me. Okay, so just to reiterate a little bit what we've done here is we've made sure that we're designing our survey in order to get the best data you could hope for. That's really key. And the other part, it's kind of a two-part thing. Not only do you need to be thinking about what data do you want, what information is going to help me answer my question, but you also need to be thinking about what you want to do with that data. So what data do I need helps me design the question I'm going to ask. And what do I want to do with that data is going to help me make sure I use the right type for that question. Like we saw with how long do you want to stay? I could make everything a string, but then my life is a lot harder because I'm going to have to process and understand and manipulate that data into something usable. So it matters what questions you need to ask and how you want that answer given, or the type of answer and type of information you want provided. So those two things combined can make some really powerful surveys that then, of course, we can share as we need for that particular project or research question, and we're on our way. Now, this was a pretty simple survey, okay? It got the information I needed in this case, but there's kind of some more I want to do with this. What I'd like to do now is ask my colleague Joseph. Joseph, there's some more things I want to do with this survey. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you were telling me the other day that you had made some really cool surveys, and some of the things you were talking about doing in those, I'd really like to do here.
Yeah, let's explore. I love Survey 123. It's simple to use, and it's so powerful, as you very well indicated. Here's your survey, and I've got the design form right here that you were showing everyone. So what do you think we should do with this?
Well, to me, both at this time when we can't go out easily and always, one of the biggest things for my vacation is not always just where I want to go, but who I'm going with. The people are such an important component. So here's my conundrum. Like, I want to know who people want to go with, but I don't want to, I want to know, do you want to go with your sister, with your mom and your sister, with your kids and sister, with your kids and mom and sister? Like, there's all these combinations I have. And for one, people who want to go alone, I don't want to bother them with all that noise of who. But people who do want to go with someone, I want them to be able to tell me who, and I want them to be able to get it right. Like, I don't want to say the wrong group of people. Like, that's really important to me. So one thing I want is to not bother people with it if they don't care. And the other is give them the ability to be a little bit specific without making it too hard for me to process that data later.
What do you think of this? What if we added a single choice in here and said something like, Who do you want to travel with? Okay. And then what if we said something like, by myself, thank you very much, or with others? How about that, Kylie?
I think that works to decide what the kind of the scope is.
Mm-hmm.
But the others are also still important to me. Like, it's very different for me in particular. As you can see, I have young kids. There's one wandering about behind me. And it's very different vacation when I go with my mother and my sister and when I go on a family trip.
Ooh, what if we set up a simple rule where we ask someone, okay, if it's by yourself, great, that's all we need to know. But with others, give them a few other choices, but only ask them that if they choose with others. How?
Perfect.
Okay, well then how about this? We add a question, and let's make it, do you want to do a single choice or a multiple choice here? Do you want to do which one do you want to do here for the, just a couple of choices here?
Well, the case I'm thinking about, I think
Okay.
multiple choice would probably make sense here.
Let's do that, and let's show folks, here's a simple but powerful thing that you can do inside here. Let's say I've got as I have here, a little text file with my choices. I can copy that, and then if I go over here, I can do batch edit. See this batch edit over on the right-hand side? That way I don't have to actually fill out these. Now, it's not such a big deal if we only have 3 things, but if you had a list of 10 or 15, this batch edit could be a real time saver. So if I hit batch edit, it says, ooh, 1 per line. Well, all I have to do is paste that in there, and let's go ahead and say, okay, hey, Kylie, look at this. It actually populated choice 1, choice 2, and choice 3. Pretty sweet.
I wish I knew that before I made you guys watch me type food, music, event, and all those other choices. That's a great trick.
It's good to start simply, though. I like the whole progression that we're laying out here. So now the important part, right? We don't want to ask this question for everybody, as you indicated. We only want to ask which others would you like to travel with if they've indicated with others. And, ooh, Kylie, I've got a choice 3 here. How do I go back and alter that? I want to fix that one, right? So if I go to choice 3, I can use the subtract button or the delete button, and now I only have the 2. Ooh, that's great. But there's one more thing. I'm going to save this. Some of our tools have autosave and some don't. So it's important to keep saving if there's no autosave on the tool that you happen to be using. But the rule, if I hover over this lower right-hand corner of my question, I've got this little set rule here. Ooh, so, okay. If I go down here, and I'm going to scoot these windows around a little bit, show selected questions, okay? Only if the answer to this question is a specific choice. That's exactly what I want. If
Definitely.
by myself, I'm good, but with others, I want to show which others would you like to travel with. Ooh, now I can rearrange the order of these later. Okay, well, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and test it out. All right, let's save this. How do I test it out again? Kylie, you were showing us that earlier.
Just choose that preview button right between where you saved and you published. There you go.
Okay, cool. All right, let's give it a go here. I'm going to preview my survey with the additional question and also test out my rule. Very nice.
So what we're expecting now is that if I'm going by myself, you say, great, have fun. And if I say I want to go with others, then you're giving me the opportunity to say who those others are.
Yeah. Okay. So who do I want to travel with? First, I want to test the by myself. Okay. I'll give it some initials. And gosh, why is it 00 latitude and longitude? Oh, you set it up so it's the globe. And if I'm collecting trees or water quality in a certain wetland or on my school campus, that's when I might want to make this map really focused on my school campus, right? And maybe even change the base map to imagery. So when someone opens it up, it's just my school campus or just the wetland down the street from my school.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe you could show us how to do that after we're done with this.
Ooh, good idea. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say, ooh, what about the Grand Mesa? Yeah, one of my favorite places. I mean, what's not to love? Lakes, lava flows. Okay, I want to stay there for 2 days. I want to do some camping. The main reason why I want to go is a natural site. I've got an image file here too, Kylie. I like the way you set up that image file. And so right over here, I've got the the aspen trees in the Grand Mesa. One of the nice things, by the way, folks, if you're on your mobile device, it gives you the option of decreasing the resolution of your image so that you're not uploading large image files. That's pretty cool too. I don't think I've not seen it on the computer, but on the device, that's a nice thing. So far, okay, by myself, but let's test with others.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Well, I want to go with some family members. I've got some family that are close by that area. So cool. So that works. So by myself, I don't get that choice. With others, so it's working fine. Super. All right, I'm going to go ahead and submit. And it says submit doesn't work in my preview mode. So what did I do something wrong there?
No, I think that makes sense. If you think about when you're previewing your survey, you're trying it out, you're playing with it, you're making sure different options work as expected, but you don't really want to add that to your data.
Indeed. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and close the preview. It's working fine. It says saved, but just to make sure, I'm going to save it again. And there was also, what if we wanted to, let's say we had a survey of, let's go back to our water quality example. We're collecting dissolved oxygen, pH, conductivity, and we're going back at different seasons of the year. So maybe I want a date in there.
Yeah, and that could make sense here too, right? Like, we know that different locations have different popularity over time. So I may care when somebody filled it out. And in this case, I wish I could just have it say today's date without the person having to do a lot.
Indeed. Let's do it. Let's try it. So date, and I'm going to put that over here. And the interesting thing about the date, as Kylie was mentioning, what it does is it gives you the date in the UTC, Coordinated Universal Time. And all that means for you and I is that it's using the date standard, it's storing it in UTC, but you're going to see it in your local time, wherever your device happens to be located, which is great. So that means you really don't have to worry about it. So, all right, so I've got a untitled question. Kylie, what should I put in here? Let me turn off my video so you don't see big fingers. What do I want to put in here?
I think we care what day the survey was filled out, right? So maybe what is today's date?
Okay.
Or
I'm with you.
even just today's date. But I really wish they didn't have to type it. Like, it's on a, we know what day it is. I'm on a device. You can see even right in the corner there, it's showing it's 4/13, right? Like, your computer already knows.
So should I select submitting date there?
Oh,
as
perfect.
the default value?
Hey, look over in the form.
Ooh, there it is. Cool.
Cool. Okay. And so what you were saying a minute ago about UTC and time, let me make sure I understand that. So what you're seeing there is the date where you are now, because we know you and I are in different time zones.
Mm-hmm.
And if it happened to be tomorrow where I was, or a different day, I would see my date. You would see your date. But what would be stored would be common to both. So we don't have to worry about making sure what we see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That is so wonderful, isn't it? Because dates can be really problematic. We encountered that in a few surveys in the past about, events like GIS Day events, for example. So yeah, this is great.
Okay, especially with the group doing these episodes of the mapping hour, right? Like, one of the fun facts I have is our geographic distribution has all of us in different time zones. So trying to pick whose time zone to use is hard enough when we're organizing a meeting and trying to talk about that. I don't want it hard-coded into my data that we have to remember who filled it out and what time zone they were in. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. There's one thing you asked me to do earlier. Probably we should get back to this map here just for a minute, right? Okay.
Yeah, because you were saying, like, there were ways I could set it up. Like, if I'm doing a local survey, like, I don't have to have the blue dot, just start right off Africa there. What else could I do?
Yeah, so the global, as I indicated earlier, many of you probably picked up on this watching this video, is that it puts it at 0, 0, 0 latitude, 0 longitude. The Null Island, famous place in geography, right? 0 latitude, 0 longitude off the coast of West Africa. But I don't want that for, let's say, a survey that I'm doing on tree species or trash in my community or water quality or something like that. So what if I did this? What if I said, ooh, what about, how about this? Let's go to Palisade. This is close to where I was earlier.
Oh, yeah.
What if I went to Palisade High School? Ooh, look at that. Now, remember what we were saying earlier. Sometimes the first thing that you put earlier in the geocoding video, the first thing that you put in there might not be exactly the place you want. So verify that it's geocoding exactly what you want. And in this case, that's not actually Palisade High School. So I'm going to scroll over to right there. Okay, that's the actual high school. So that means, oh, you know what? I don't quite like this yet, because let's say I'm really local and I
Yeah.
want to change it to, how about imagery?
Yeah, because that
Yeah, so
didn't
I can
look like what I picture.
indeed. So if I use imagery, yeah, now I'm going to be able to collect some tree species and so on and so forth inside here. So I'm liking that a little bit better. And so now I've got this captured, and then when I save it, the person opening my survey is going to be right there on my school grounds and in my community where I can collect all the trees and plants.
Okay, so for this survey though,
Yeah.
what do you think? Like, do we think most people are going to want to go on vacation in Colorado? Like, should we start it on Colorado? Because your other
No.
vacation spot was Colorado.
Yeah, good point. Let's go to the globe. How do we go to the globe easily here? We could zoom
I
out,
don't know. Okay.
right? We could zoom out. We could go to Africa and try to get back to our starting point. And then from there, we could just scroll out a little bit. I'm not sure if imagery is the best, though. I kind of like what you had earlier. Did you have the topographic map in there?
I was actually just using the default. So, yep.
The default. Okay, not USA topo maps. You had which one in there? Let's see. Got some nice choices. Topographic, probably,
yeah.
hey?
For this survey, I don't think it's too important exactly which one we choose. Since I imagine most people know the name of the place they're going to do, and they're going to do a search to find it. So in this case, I think as long as it looks good and people can associate where they've chosen with what end up on the map, I think a number of these will be fine.
Okay, cool. There's one other thing that a comment you made earlier reminds me of, and that is this default value. So let's take a look at this. The main reason you want to go. If I went into that and I had clicked on food, Kylie, would that show to the end user that food would be the default value? They could change it if they wanted to, but would it be the default value there?
Yeah, so that's a way that you can give people the initial answer and maybe the most common one, or just so that a button is filled out, right? Because this is a required question. So it can be nice to kind of indicate what it should look like when they're done. So you can choose a default. I personally don't like to on an open-ended question like this, especially a required one, because then some people are going to skip it. And I'm going to get, my data will show a heavier selection of food, for example, than probably it should reflect.
Whereas if I were going out and I was, let's say, in Charlie's part of the world where you've got maybe 50% of the tree species on my school campus are oak, maybe I want oak for the default, or black walnut, or what other species are common. Yeah, so they won't have to keep clicking that. But I see your point. We don't want that in this case. Okay, so that's one other thing to mention. Also, the order. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's a really great point, that a lot of these choices that we're talking about really depend on what survey I'm doing, who's filling it out, and what my best data is, right? So just to reiterate again, like that's going to drive a lot of this configuration, I would almost say, similar to we saw in the apps the other day. You're configuring these questions, right? I'm not programming them. I don't have to write my own code, but I can set up all these complex options and appearance and all these other things. But yeah, I noticed when I was filling it out, one thing I know I do with surveys is I often click the link, right? When someone said, hey, fill out my survey, I'll click it because I never mind helping someone who wants some data. But some of those surveys can get so long, or maybe a bit boring after a while. And sometimes I've filled out part of it, but I'm done. So what do you think we could do to make our survey really capture the data that we need, but letting people who are having fun maybe answer some of those questions that we would like to have the data for?
Yeah, good point, especially in our modern era, right? Make sure that you only are gathering what you're really going to use. And so I'm not sure, Kylie, if we really need your name. We're not going to do anything with it, are we?
Well, I don't imagine so, right? For one, I'm not even requiring a full name. I haven't asked for anything
Mm-hmm.
truly identifying here. And that can be good, right? Because some people don't want to give identifying information. And even asking for the name, maybe they won't fill it out just because it's
Yeah.
there.
Good point. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And also in our
Okay.
work, do we really want to do it? This is a nice little safety valve. Some of the tinkering that we've done, the order is just not ideal anymore. Can I move these things around?
Hey,
Like I'm
try
thinking,
it out.
the picture might, if I'm having them think about where they want to
cool.
go, maybe I bump up this picture to be right underneath the map. Ooh, I like that a lot
That makes
better.
sense to me because that would also remind them of the answers for the other questions, right? When I look at the picture of my dream vacation, I remember things like how long I want to be there and what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Another thing that you and I were chatting about in the discussion on Survey 123 is that the map just updated. The whole Survey 123, as well as other components of ArcGIS Online, updated recently. And one of the exciting things is it's no longer just a point that you can add. You can add lines and polygons. Kylie, why should we get excited about lines and polygons?
All right, well, again, it's going to come to what I'm surveying, right? But if I'm looking at maybe invasive species, maybe bike trails, those are things that are better represented as something other than a dot on the map, right? If I'm thinking of where has an invasive species spread to, a dot doesn't really tell me much. So in that case, instead, if I was to use a polygon, I could actually draw the area of interest. And similarly, a bike lane, if I can draw that whole line, I have a much better representation of the physical thing in my digital thing or the map. So that's really cool that we can now do points and lines and polygons.
That's pretty exciting. One of the things that's really powerful is the end question. After you filled out the survey, what's the question or the comment that the user sees? It's nice to give them a confirmation that they filled out their survey successfully. That's always a good, confirming thing. Did I do it correctly? Am I good to move on now? And so that is actually the default with the survey. When you fill it out, that's the default. But notice here, what I've got in my version of the Dream Vacation Survey is, great, your data was sent successfully. Thank you. To view your point on the map, click here. So you can have a link. You can customize that. We'll show you in a moment. But this is the few that I've filled out. There's my Grand Mesa. What's not to love? But there's my map. That map appears inside my content in my organizational account. So I can go to my content in my account. Here it is. Here's my Survey 123 form. Here's my web map. And all I'm doing is creating a link. Let's show them how to do that. Now, where do I find that? Let's see. It's not in the design form. Let's go ahead and save this again since I've made some changes. Oh, there's the settings over there as well. Let's go over there. Okay, so notice the default is in this bold text here. Notice I've got it twice. I don't need to have it twice. All I need to have is, great, your data was sent successfully, thanks. To view your point on the map, click here, which is what you just saw, and then I have it checked, show message to prompt the user to submit another record. Ooh, you want to submit another record for what if they have more than one favorite vacation spot? Do we want to be able to allow them to do it twice or 3 times?
Yeah, I want to see all the cool places people want to go. I'm not saying pick your very favorite, just somewhere you want to go.
Okay. Well, sweet.
There is actually one thing I want to jump back to before we leave this design mode, and it's just to bring up something. We use that multi-choice option on the form there. And this is a great reminder to me about why you want to do what you and I are about to do, which is play with some data and see what types of data you're getting and how you can use that, which is when you look at that multiple choice, what you end up getting in your data next is going to be a little bit interesting. It's not going to be one answer in the column because, as we mentioned at the beginning, each thing you drag on is a field. So when you do a single choice, you'll get one answer for that column. But if you go to that other question, if you could scroll to where we're showing who you want to go with, so up a little bit, that one, you're going to get those answers all together. And so just a reminder that you're going to need to process that differently to use it later. And so what I want to make sure people think about as we go through and fill this out and look at what happens is think about how we talked at the beginning, making sure you're asking a question in a way that you'll get data you can work with, and understanding the limitations of the different types of questions and what you get back and what you could do with it. Because sometimes it's still going to be the right choice. It might be okay, but other times it might not. And so you just need to understand what you're going to get in order to design it right. And really, it's going to come to what we're about to do now, which is kind of play with it. Go fill out a few, try it out, see what kind of data you're getting.
Absolutely. I like what you're saying. It kind of reminds me of what we're always talking about in terms of, if it's worth doing in education, it's worth some planning. It's just like when you go out in the field with your students, even before Survey 123 existed, right? You always talked about the units that you're creating. Is it in feet or meters, as you indicated earlier? What kinds of things are you going to collect? Let's make a plan. Let's talk about safety, all those other things. It's worth spending time on. Same thing with designing your survey. Okay. I love it. Okay, so let's go ahead and how do we get to the place where we actually are going to fill this out for reals?
Okay, if you remember over in the Collaborate tab, right, when we were looking at the sharing options, we had those buttons and you could just open it in a new tab. So let's try
right
that.
Here. Oh, okay.
All the way. Yep, that guy.
Yeah.
Let's just launch it and start.
We're
playing.
launching. We're going live. Today's date. I'm liking that.
Great.
Okay.
I don't have to do anything.
My picture. Ooh. I've got another place I'd love to go right up here. Oh, look at that. I'm kind of a geek for deserts, but I'm going to go by myself here. This one is in Rangeley, Colorado. Okay, and that location is actually out here a bit, right over here. Okay, I'm good with that. One day is good. What is the main reason I want to go? It's a natural site. It's a beautiful area. Kylie, this is looking good. I'm liking this.
Go ahead and submit it.
Okay. Your data was sent successfully. Thanks. To view your point on the map, I could click there and go to the map. Oh, look at this. Click here to submit another survey. I'm going to click here. And hey, I've got my survey again. I could submit another point.
All right. And then, of course, after we've done a couple of these, we could do similar to what Tom did, right? And we're not going to show all that right now, just in the interest of time. But we could submit a bunch of different test points, a handful, trying, as a wise Charlie once told me, try to make sure you get so that every field has every option. Because then you can play with what you can do with this data before you finalize your survey. Because as soon as you have other people start filling this out, it's going to be very hard to go back and change it because these are tied to the fields in your data. So we want to make sure we design and play with our survey enough to get it right before we hand it off to others.
I think what you mentioned earlier is really important. We're going to spend more time in this sharing, collaborate zone, but you mentioned, hey, I can tweet about it. I can send it in an email. The point is, oftentimes people say, okay, I've built my survey. Well, if you build it, they will not come. You know what I mean? You have to tell people about it. You have to tell people that it's there, whether it's your own students or a bigger group. And this whole thing about collaborating, when this became a true crowdsourcing set of tools, that to many of us was just an extremely, paradigm shifting moment, because then it became a citizen science tool. But the power of this one, of course, is that, as you indicated right at the beginning, it's an editable feature service. It's an item in your ArcGIS Online organizational subscription. Now you can do analysis and other things on it.
Awesome. Thanks, Joseph. Okay, so now we know how to build these. We've looked at, a pretty basic survey and then how to use that as a starting point and to get more and more advanced. So one part of these is designing your survey. But if we step back a minute, before we even start designing our survey, we need to know what problem we're trying to solve, what question we want to ask, what we're gathering this data for. Now, in this, we used a dream vacation. And a simple question like that, or a common thing that everyone has an opinion on, or a thought that they want to share, those icebreaker type questions, can make a great survey to use to get familiar with the tool, to play with it, to try out the different data types. But now you're ready to do a real project, or you want to, or you want to take your class through one. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Tom to talk with us a little bit about some ways to get ideas for these projects.
Thanks, Kylie, and great job. So I'm going to go over to the Mapping Hour homepage, And we're going to go find a resource called Geo Projects. And what Geo Projects is a hub page that has collected some ideas about different types of student or teacher created or parent created projects that we might use. So you'll see in here that we have an item called Geo Projects popped up in our search, and we're going to get a little snapshot of it. But really what we want to do here is down in the lower right corner, we'll just hit open, and that's going to pop open a new tab. This is actually going to send us over to a different web page called Geo Projects. And the point of the Geo Projects hub page is really twofold. One is to help provide examples of projects and questions that we could use with Survey 123 or other field data collection tools to help us better understand a phenomena. The other primary purpose of this hub site or web page is to let you as educators share project ideas that you have. So there's actually a Survey 123 form here at the bottom where you can tell other educators about a really cool idea you have. For today, though, at least, we want to focus very briefly on some of the resources that have been preloaded into this hub site. So I've clicked on the Science button for Geo Projects, and what we get in our search tab is a list of different ideas that you can use to create your own Survey 123 survey. So if we look at one here, we'll look at Trash Cache. It was an early project that was created. This project walks you through how you might set up a Survey 123 project to collect where schoolyard or neighborhood trash accumulates. So ideally with projects that are in the Projects Hub, there'll be a short 2-page guide, kind of like this one for educators or parents, about how to set up a project, showing you what you might be able to do. So we're going to open up this sample URL. And in this case, you'll see that we've built a sample Survey 123 site. And this, again, is really just designed to help you get a sense of one way that you could set up a project that documents, in this case, trash. Now, if we go back to our original project, back up here a notch or two, and we'll take a look at some of the other content that's been loaded in here. So there's something called Community Round Mile. That looks interesting. I bet Charlie knows something about that. There's something in here called a virtual transect. These are both good for documenting things about the landscape. It's a project about lichen. Lichen can be used for monitoring air quality. And then there's a project design here about how you might go about mapping your soundscape in your community. So the Geo Projects hub page is a growing list of examples and resources that you might use to think about or fashion your own project. The cool thing about Geo Projects, but particularly about tools like Survey 123, is you can design really hyper-local questions and tools to help answer those questions. For example, if I'm stuck at home with a young learner, we might want to investigate where the dandelions are growing or where the anthills are right in our own backyard. And with a tool like Survey 123, you saw Joseph and Kylie zooming down very close onto a landscape. You can almost do that depending on where you are with areas as small as a garden or a backyard. So try it out and feel free to explore this page at Geo Projects to get some of your own ideas about what you might use Survey 123 to build. Kylie?
Thanks, Tom. Say I start with one of yours, but I tweak it and I come up with this really cool idea. I can come back and share it there too. So that site's going to grow, right? There'll be more and more projects over time and more ideas.
You got it.
All right. Over to you, Charlie.
Thanks, guys. That was really great. The piece that I'm sort of interested in exploring is I know what I want to have. I know the data that I want to have. I kind of have a vision in my head. Should I just get onto the computer and start banging away on building that project right away?
So what I'd say to that is in one part, that's going to depend on your learner. Because there are some people who find it very empowering to start right in the software, drag and drop, know exactly the things they can customize and configure. I'm one of those people. I like to see it right there, do it, play with it there, and knowing it's a playground, I'm not going to break anything. I don't have to save. I can always start over. Now, there are other people who don't learn well that way. They find it overwhelming to have that many buttons and options and places to go. And for those learners, you can do something as simple as Post-it notes on a whiteboard. Something easy to move around, reconfigure, write down what's important. Another great tool I've seen is just make a table of the data that you want in the end, look at that data, and then work backwards to get the questions and types you need.
Cool. Good guidance there. Yeah. All right. So that intro, that review of Survey 123, for those of you who have had a chance to get started, what I find really important about that is what do you need to do? And it's that whole survey design thing. Think about the survey design. Think about your question types. Good questions are going to lead to good data. And these projects, the Geo projects that Tom was walking us through, those are going to be really exciting to see what people generate. So share the projects that you have done and share some that as you're getting into new projects, come back and share those. So a couple of skills and concepts, field data. So this is data collection, principles of data collection. And you can be out there gathering data. You can be responding from the data that people give you. You can be entering the data. There are all kinds of ways of thinking about how to design your survey. But that the surveys are generating data. Nobody else, this data doesn't exist out there for you to add until you create it or until your students create it, or until you interview people and they create it. And that design issue is just ultimately important here. And then being able to share things both on the data creation side, but also on the analysis side. I'm looking forward to getting back and taking a look at where the people who have filled out the survey for attending the Mapping Hour series, where they are located around the world. Submit these Geo projects that you have done and to submit the ones that you start building. And if you want to talk about some of these things with some others who are participating in the Mapping Hour, just go to the EsriURL.com/Mapping Hour chat room. That's a space up on GeoNet. You'll need to make sure that your login is Esri enabled. All of these pieces, they fit together. All of the pieces that we're trying to cover in here fit together. This is one big framework for being able to take advantage of GIS. Now, we've gotten a good introduction to Survey 123 in this episode. We're going to come back to Survey 123 before we explore some of the other applications as well. Some of the resources, Esri.com/Survey123. That's the website for the application. You can see in the ArcGIS blog, the S, the search, equals #Survey123. And again, to find the Geo projects, that's where to go. Over on the Teach with GIS side, they have a number of surveys that you may be interested in exploring here. The Teach with has I think a trio. Learn has a different set, a larger set, and then on the training site, you can actually build a learning plan. And so I built a little learning plan in there, and this address will take you to that learning plan. There's a lot that you can explore, and you don't even have to go through all of them to do all of this. Sometimes you can go into one of these lessons, one of these activities, and just look at how they're designing it and say, that's what I really need out of this. Getting examples is really important. Well, great start with Survey 123. for this episode. We're going to come back to it in next episode. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.